Our world is inherently made out of two polarities. This is one of the truths of the world that you cannot escape. So as soon as you are born, you start to breathe, and the breath is also made out of two polarities. It's made out of the inhale and the exhale. You can't have one without the other, but yet both create this rhythm that in the end creates life. When you start to speak, you start to label yourself as I, and you start to differentiate yourself from everything that is not I. This also throws us again in the world of opposites. And if that wasn't enough, you start to learn about the opposites throughout your whole life, such as good and bad, men and women, right and wrong, and positive and negative. Also, with every decision we make, we are saying yes to one thing, but we are excluding the other. Scientists came to this same conclusion in the 20th century when they discovered the nature of light. Before, they thought that light was just energy or waves, but later they found out that light can be both. It can be matter and it can be energy, and it actually is both at the same time. They tried to do the same experiments on electrons, atoms, and what they found out was the same thing as they did with light, that things can be energy and matter at the same time. And what we can now see is that when you combine the two, you actually get something that is much greater. And for example, if you take quantum computer, it doesn't have bits as a normal computer, like ones and zeros. It has qubits that can be one and zero at the same time, and its computing power is much higher than that of a normal computer. So, what is the point of me telling you all this? How can you use this information in your life? Since the world is made out of polarities, you are also made out of polarities. And I think you already know that your mind is made out of the conscious and unconscious part of your mind. It's made out of the conscious and unconscious mind. The problem is that even though we think that our conscious mind is the one that's in control, actually what science and psychology show is that actually the unconscious mind is that is in control. So our mind is always trying to get this unity, this non-dual state, which we call love or happiness or joy. This is a state where there is no thinking, there is no more good and bad. The world just is what it is. So we are striving to get to this state, but how do we do it? In today's society, the way that we do it is, for example, drinking alcohol, where we are actually blocking the negative parts of our unconscious mind or conscious mind. And in that way, we are obtaining this non dual state, this state of joy and happiness for a short term. Or we are chasing this bad relationship with another person, or we are taking drugs, we are doing these things that raise our adrenaline, and all of these things are unhealthy ways to seek for this non-dual state, this state of love, this state of happiness, joy. So we think that we are in control and we are the ones that chose these things, but as Carl Jung says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate. So even though we know what's best for us, we are still guided by our unconsciousness and doing these destructive things that are not in our best interest. And the ironic thing about all of this is that even if we get those things, in the end, we know that we will not be fulfilled. Maybe, yeah, in the short term, but after some time, we will still find reasons to be unhappy and we will still try to chase this thing that we think will fulfill us. With this kind of behavior, we didn't solve the main problem in ourselves. The problem still exists. It's just that we found this relief for a short time. But the problem is that most of these things are destructive and they are not sustainable over a long time. And I would say that a lot of illnesses are connected with this behavior. And by illness, I don't mean just illnesses like a flu or cancer, but also being addicted to like sugar, drugs, or adrenaline, or other kinds of destructive behaviors, that all of this can be considered an illness. And yes, I know that some illnesses are genetic or come from the environment, but most of them come from you, from your mental problems, or from your kind of behavior, from your habits, from stress, from not exercising enough, and so forth. Usually, an illness or behavior is always connected to an unconscious program in your mind. And first, your body warns you by having a physical symptom or by doing something repeatedly destructive and showing you that is not behavior is not correct and that the problem still persists. And when you don't solve this problem, the problem gets more and more destructive. The illness becomes more and more chronic until it becomes so devastating that you can't do anything about it, like being addicted to drugs or having cancer or having another chronic illness that you can't solve. So by knowing all this, our only way to actually heal, to actually be happy, fulfilled, feel love, is to make the unconscious more aware, to accept it so it no longer is in control of us. So how do we do that? In our society, the way we heal these things before there are physical symptoms is usually by psychotherapy. But psychotherapy usually works by trying to identify a thing you are doing that is harming you and trying to find a solution. The problem is that psychotherapy is actually healing the thoughts, but it's not really healing the core problems. I know that there are a lot of types of psychotherapy, but most of them are just trying to heal the thoughts, or just you try to talk to a psychotherapist about your problems, but you're not actually dealing with the root cause of these thoughts, of these problems. I think that every thought stems from a feeling that we have in our body. One feeling can create thousands of thoughts over a period of time. For example, if you had a traumatic or bad experience as a child, this feeling or memory will be suppressed in your mind. So it becomes part of your unconsciousness. And by denying that it exists, it doesn't mean that the feeling is gone. The feeling will just find a way to manifest in some other way. So the feeling can, for example, manifest as you having fearful thoughts about something, or thoughts that drive you to addiction or destructive behavior. So if psychotherapy doesn't work, or the common approach doesn't work, how do we actually heal? We heal by letting go of our feelings. We do not deny them, repress, or escape them. We just let them be what they are. The process of letting go is actually really simple. The feeling should just be observed and not judged. The feeling is just a feeling. It is not good or bad. And it is by us putting a negative connotation on the feeling that it continues to persist and control us. Of course, this is easier said than done, but usually the simplest things are the hardest ones to do. That is how it is with all hard habits in our life, like exercising, eating healthy, meditating, and so on. So even feelings like shame are, or being angry or being sad, are not bad. They are just what they are. And these feelings have a negative connotation in our society, and they are shamed or repressed or are avoided. It's your mission, if you want to be happier, more loved, being able to love more, it's your job to actually accept these feelings for what they are, to not judge them as good or bad. Because only when you accept those feelings in yourself, you can also accept them in others, and you can love the other person and also love yourself more. So what are some practical ways this can be done? The letting go process can be done by meditation, by trying to visualize the situation that caused the feeling and then being aware of the sensation that appear in your body. You again don't judge them as good or bad, but let them be. You just observe them until they disappear from your body. The other method is by just living your life, and when a situation appears that causes the bad feeling, you again just observe it and you don't resist it. You can also later, if you want, recall the situation through meditation or by simply thinking about it when you have the time and trying to not judge this feeling, just accept it for what it is. You can also start challenging yourself in your life by doing, for example, public speaking or things that are fearful for you. And you can try to not again just let go of the feelings that you are experiencing, not trying, you should not try to resist them. And by this by this method, after some time, it will get better and better. The fear will become weaker and weaker. Usually, in theory, it sounds like this method is much simpler than psychotherapy or other approaches, but actually, this is again another resistance to this method because it is so simple. The solution is so simple. It looks like, how can this work? But it actually doesn't have to be that complicated. And even though it does sound simple, it's actually the hardest thing you can do. Also, this concept in our society that everything that's worth achieving has to be hard, but maybe that's not the truth. Maybe the things can also be easy, but yes, I think this is not a free pass or that it will solve all your problems, but I think it dissolves the resistance to your goals and it makes it easier to achieve them. For me personally, the things I said in this video and the previous one about God are the fundamentals for my view on spirituality. It is a summary of what I think spirituality actually is and what it was always meant to be. The problem with religions is that it had to influence people from really low states of consciousness to where they can actually function in society. So they had to make someone who worked on the fields his whole life and couldn't even read, they had to make him understand what morality is, what spirituality is. So stories were always used on this low level states of consciousness, like fear. They wanted to impose fear or other low level emotions to make all the people understand. And but the problem in today's society is that we are past that point and most religions are now outdated. So we can now strip down the unnecessary things from religions and keep the good things, which is something that I myself am trying to do. So just because we don't believe in a religion doesn't mean we have to completely abandon spirituality, which is one of the most important aspects of our lives.